we had a lot of rocks on the hill, and we now have the burden of building that soil afresh.
This is our farm water and soil restoration journey. Initially, bare soil with no permanent tree cover, but we soon grew some bananas to cover the soil and shed the coffee. Later, we piled some stone lines to prevent soil erosion, but soon restructured them into swales. 3 years down the road, this is our coffee garden. Coming up are the details on more of this. But what do you think? Did we miss something?
So in our water conservation process, I think I would summarize it into 2 quick steps. The first one, get the dam water. And then once you've got it, you do the second one, make it stay. Keep it. So there are many things that you could do in water conservation to make the water stay. Most of the techniques that are used are aimed at slowing, seeping, and sinking the water in the soil. The perfect tool that we use on the farm for that right now is swales, and I described that in a previous video. But there are other tools that we used before the swales. We used stone lines. Because the hill has lots of stones, we just piled them in a line. However, these were not very appealing for me because they turned out to be a bush, and weeding a pile of stones is a headache. So I quickly abandoned those and changed them into swales instead. But they work pretty well. The other method that you will use is the terraces. However, the terraces are a tremendous amount of work. The places that currently have terraces, widespread in villages and all, were enforced by governments by force. As an individual, those are hard things to do. But in Kenya, they have done the Fanyaju terraces, which have proved to be successful. And for us, we have incorporated what we had as typically swales with a bit of the Fanyaju terraces. Currently, we've only put 1 line of stones, but we keep adding stones over the seasons. And over a couple of years, hopefully, the terraces can take shape. The other thing is to ensure that the soil has plants throughout the year. The roots of the plants hold the soil together and make it literally impossible for the water to wash it away. So in order to do that, we decided to plant coffee, because coffee is a perennial crop. It grows for years. But in addition, we had to put some trees there because the trees have much stronger roots and they can be able to supplement holding the soil together. But having plants is not enough. The part that doesn't have plants, which seems exposed, will be covered artificially with what we call mulch. When the water is not enough, get the dam water. But you can't afford to irrigate. It's damn expensive. So the irrigation I could afford at the time, or I thought I could afford, was water bottles. So I would cut those water bottles and then place each water bottle next to a coffee plant, and a caretaker in the farm would pour water in those water bottles when the rain didn't come. And that was cool. So I filled the entire garden with all these bottles, but it's quite an amount of work to fetch water down from the well and then bring it up on a hill. Remember, the land is hilly, it's pretty steep. It wasn't really sustainable, but well, everything for the water. So we opted to mulch as well. So in case we mulched, filling those water bottles twice a week was sufficient. But if we didn't mulch, then we had to do an extra irrigation. So the mulching itself served like an irrigation of sorts. So here are our measures. We shall depend on the rain, but for every single downpour we'll get, we shall have to maximize it. Cover the soil with plants throughout the year. Coffee, trees. The parts that are not covered with plants, cover them with mulch. Since the land is hilly, we create channels for where that water can sit and avenues to prevent soil from moving where it is. If we do this, hopefully in 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, we may be able to build a much healthier soil that can be able to sustain a good growth. It's been 3 years, and here is what it looks like. Initially, soil that is exposed with no permanent trees and a couple of rocks. Later, we grow some bananas to cover the soil, and also the coffee with a couple of trees. The quickest tree that you could grow in a short time is bananas. And then we put some stone lines within the coffee garden to reduce soil erosion. We then translate that into swales because we felt the swales would do a better job. And finally, we revise those swales to add stone lines on the upper part of the swale and well-designed connections of those channels. Now we have a fully grown coffee garden, and this looks good, but we think it can be better. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are there better ways?